What is the strangest thing you've witnessed someone do in public? I was stopped at a red light and there was a lady in the car next to me. She was having really sporadic head movements. Not the head bob dancing type, but just kinda crazy. After like 10-15 seconds of this, her neck went limp and her head just hung forward. The light turned green and I hesitated a moment, wondering if she needed medical care, and was about to pull in front of her to check on her when her head abruptly jerked back up and she drove off without hesitation. I wrestled in high school and was down about 20 pounds for a tournament. We were walking back to the hotel after weigh-ins and my pants kept falling down. As I forgot a belt. One of my buddy's dads asked me if I needed a belt. And I said sure do, thinking it was a joke. Or maybe he had an extra one in the hotel. He proceeds to take off his belt. Give it to me. Pulls a second belt out of his front pocket. And puts it on. No idea why he had two identical leather belts with him that day. But I appreciated it. I moved to a town which had a bit of a bad reputation. The first thing I saw when I was bringing boxes in was a man walking down the street with a bunch of plastic bags on fire. He was holding it like a lantern and was so casual about it despite flaming plastic dripping onto him. Actually like the town though. It's got character. Woman in an immaculate business suit chasing a chicken down the street. Wait, was it the mayor from Paw Patrol? I saw a dude with a suitcase. Completely naked entering our train. His facial expressions were normal. He looked concerned and stared at his phone the entire time until I had to get out. Casual Fridays at the office is getting out of hand. Was this in San Francisco? There is, or at least used to be, a man who commutes to work in the financial district completely naked aside from a briefcase. I've seen him multiple times. I was riding the Paris metro one day, when this middle-aged man sits down about half a car down, and is non-stop streaming the most foul, vulgar curses in French at no one in particular. Then suddenly, he hiccups, puts his hand to his mouth and says oh, excusez-moi, and, after a second, resumes his tirade. I had to turn around and hold my mouth to keep from laughing out loud. Standing in line in a store at the mall when I hear a weird sound from a woman's large tote bag. That is also slightly moving. Could swear I heard a quack. Couldn't be though. Except it was. She saw me looking at her bag confused, so opened it and showed me that she had half a dozen ducklings in there. She said she had errands to run and couldn't leave them in the car because of the heat. Made sense. But I think carrying around half a dozen baby ducks in a bag is pretty strange. She a quackhead. I saw a woman on the GO train pull out an entire raw white onion from her purse, then proceed to eat it like an apple as if it were nothing. She was tearing up and didn't seem to be enjoying it much. That's how painful a GO train ride is. You wouldn't mind eating a raw onion. Once saw a man standing next to an extremely expensive looking home jump head first into a hedge. Pull himself out. Look at the hedge. And jump back in head first. He continued to do this for a while until someone nearby asked him if he were okay. To which he responded with don't worry. This is my hedge. I'm just bored. Still to this day I respect his casual not giving a ref vibe. He should have let someone else have a try instead of keeping it all for himself. I was in a bathroom stall the other day when a little boy, maybe 6-7 years old, goes in the stall beside me. He sits on the toilet and starts humming some made up tune. That was already a little funny but nothing uncommon. Then he starts aggressively humming louder and louder. It gets to the point where it's almost just shrieking, and then he suddenly stops because he's out of breath. 2 seconds later I hear a plop in the toilet and he then begins singing hallelujah. Hallelujah. I just pooped in the toilet. And repeats this a few times. I was almost passing out from trying to hide my laughter. That is awesome. You heard a legendary song that summons forth the poop? I see you've met my son. I watched a woman walk into Chipotle, wash her hands for a solid 5 minutes under the Sprite in the soda fountain, and then fill up a trash bag fully with the Sprite and walk out with it. If I was working there, I'd have just stood there and watched. Because there's no way I'm interfering with whatever's going on. Right in front of my house, a couple of guys stopped their car, left it in the middle of the street, and began a fist fight. Then after a couple of minutes of each of them throwing more or less ineffectual punches, they both stopped and got back in the car and drove away. It's that last part that makes it so strange. If an argument had proceeded to blows, then I wouldn't just get back in the car with the other guy as if nothing ever happened. Isn't the whole point of a fist fight between friends to resolve the issue? Like you get mad, so you punch each other until you're not mad, and soon after you laugh about it and apologize. Not a healthy dynamic. But that's happened for me. Once saw a man unicycling through a mall parking lot with groceries bags in each hand. During a snowstorm. No one ever believes me. They don't believe me when I first tell them and assume I said bicycle. They really don't believe me when I correct them and say no. Unicycle. One wheel. I wouldn't have bothered telling you this if there had been two wheels. An old dude put down his suitcase and started doing a weird interpretive dance. The worst part is that this was in a crowd of hundreds of people and he was staring me down specifically with a creepy smile. I was a couple hundred feet away and when I looked back there he was. Smiling. Dancing. Eyes locked onto me. I can just imagine him with his fingers fanned out behind his back. Hop stepping and jumping near and far like some exotic Elmo bird. Near. Far. Want some fuck? I've worked downtown for 20 years. And have seen some but two things come to mind. 1. A guy riding a unicycle down a busy city street. All while wearing a propeller beanie and juggling. I figured he must have been practicing a routine. Or something. Still. The sheer randomness of it made my day. 2. A white-haired old man wearing a sparkly sequined jacket. Fiddling with this massive, ancient silver boombox. The boombox started playing some funky disco music. And the dude hoisted the boombox up on his shoulder and just started strutting down the street in time with the beat. Mother Fair had his own theme music. Once went on a drunken walk alone. At one point while walking though a part of my suburb I heard a hello shouted from across the street. I look over and see what appears to be a man who is also walking around drunk. Well, he must have been even worse than me. Because he proceeded to hug a nearby telephone pole and slowly slide down it until he was laying on the ground. Still holding the pole. AWW, he found a friend. A young couple trying to transport a couch on Vancouver's SkyTrain late at night. Looks like they were considerate enough to move it at night. There was a man running down the sidewalk who stopped when he got close and yelled strange fruit. And then farted into traffic. Somehow not getting hit. He ran off down the street yelling about strange fruit. I was going to the shopping center in a big city, school trip, to see some movie, and in one village we have been passing through I saw someone trying to cut off a street lamp with a saw. A refine hand saw. Also, I live in Poland so we joked that he wanted an outdoor lamp but didn't want it to buy one. I used to work night shift repairing broken down trains. One night I was called out to a train parked up on a siding in the next town. So I went to the job. Made the repair and was sitting in the driver's seat chilling and smoking a cigarette before heading back. Alongside the siding. Over a fence was an industrial estate with a bunch of units. There was one apparently working. And a loading bay door open. I saw a security guy come out of the door and stand there looking out for a minute or so before he started dancing. The dancing grew into a full-on Michael Jackson style routine with moonwalks etc. No music. He maybe had headphones. Just this guy dancing away on his own in the night. That was unusual. But sort of okay. But he then stopped dancing. Lied down on the floor and started rolling sideways back and forth. Maybe 5 times left. 5 times right. Then he got up and went back in. I can see he got a bit carried away with the music on his headphones or in his head or whatever that led to the dance. But I don't know what the F the rolling about was for. We saw a guy take a Big Mac steamy right on the beach. Lifeguards were screaming at him and the local police took him away. Openly weeping while carrying a bagpipe while walking the streets of San Jose, California. On a high school field trip we went to DC and a man was staring at the school bus while jerking off. It's always nice to visit your congressional representative when you're in DC. Don't worry, that's just my uncle. I was driving home from the grocery store and saw two guys standing at a bus stop. One had all his clothes off on the sidewalk while shaving his body. The other looked very uncomfortable. I don't think anyone believes me. A woman lift her skirt, squat and pee on the sidewalk in front of a bus stop. Middle of the day. High-end shopping center. Busy intersection. One time I was at the zoo near the rhino exhibit and an old lady went and stood leaning on the fence with outstretched arms Titanic style and started yodeling. I swear to God the rhino got up from laying down. Pranced not ran, pranced over. Did a circle then ran back and laid down. She got off the fence and kept walking. Nobody believes me. Reversal. The best place for us as teens on a limited budget was to visit buffet restaurants and stuff as much pizza in our faces as we could. Our favorite place took a long time to clear tables, so we would just move tables after we got seconds. This one time, we finished our first plates, went to the buffet and went straight to the second table. An older couple sat down by our first table while we were getting our seconds. We finished and as we walked by our first table, I grabbed some food off my original plate, munched on it, and looked at the lady. She was frozen in mid-cringe. Horrified. Her eyes were massive. Her mouth was at an odd angle. And she just glared at me. It didn't strike me until after I left that she had no idea that was my plate and just assumed that I was a child monster living on the streets eating other people's slobbery leftovers. I live in Nick, so that might be cheating. But there's a guy on the UES who cosplays as a baby in a pretty interesting way. He'll walk down 5th Ave in the 60s and 70s pulling a wagon with toys. And every few blocks he'll upturn the whole thing. Throw a tantrum, toys everywhere. Crying. Fists pounding. etc. After a few minutes, he'll calmly put everything back in the wagon. And do it all over again. What in the actual F?